Hey, boys and girls, we are back from Bali. The last podcast you would have heard from us would have been our discussion around values. And it was a huge part of the Bali retreat that we did. And it was a really, really great way to kind of glue the activities to the workouts, to meeting new people, to really making sure that all of that was translated into what did they change when they got home. So huge success all round, really. It was a really, really good couple of weeks with two different groups over in the retreat centre that we're using. It's the second year using the same spot, and we'll certainly be back again next year. I think we're probably already booked. Even if we were to say, like, next week we're going again, we would have those full. And we've also got one happening later in the year in Queensland. But where I want to focus today is going to be more so a bit of a recap of Bali, really allow you to walk alongside me through what we did and get sort of experience it for yourself in regards to some of the changes we made. But I think there's going to be some real value for you in this podcast around some of those deeper tweaks, refinements, focus points of your day-to-day nutrition, exercise, and general mindset towards approaching health, that longevity factor, and making sure it's not just a short-term thing is exactly why we do what we do, and hopefully why you listen to this podcast as well. So Mandy, obviously you flew over with me for the first week. We managed to fit so much in even before the retreat started with all of our content and filming and podcasting and finding local gyms and all the rest, getting stuck in traffic for far too long.
Yep.
And of course, participating in the full first week, as well as at least connecting with the group that was here last year. I'm going to give you a big, hairy question to start with, but what was either the surprising part or just the big highlight overall from meeting both groups or being in the retreat alongside them?
It is a big, hairy one. I think it's something which we've had show up, and I know you feel this and I feel this after every single in-person event that we do, is just that kind of energy and clarity even that you get when you walk away from those, having actually just talked to people face to face and been in the same room with them and had a chance to sit down and share some food with them and have a coffee or whatever with them. It's completely different than what we get when we're in our little silos in our offices, and we get to talk on Zoom all the time and it's great, but being actually in person with someone, doing something with someone, and doing something hard. And I think it's even, going to the extent of like doing a workout with some people and really, Olly cracking the whip and people finding their edge and just those sorts of things. There's just so much energy that people take home from that. And I think it always gets my brain percolating, and everything that I hear from clients after those events as well is they've had a breakthrough or a thought process, or they've thought through something different, or they've had a realization of something new or something important that they just didn't know. And this is people that have been in our world for quite a long time. So it's not like there's anything new or magical there. It's just that kind of influence that you have when you put people who are working towards a big goal of personal health and growth and all those sorts of things in the same place. And you don't just it's not just addition, it's multiplication of clarity, energy, and focus that comes out of that. And I think that's probably the big takeaway. Like I always leave all of those things with more energy, usually tired, energized.
Yeah. No, I think there's two parts that I'll extract out of that I want to apply to you listening to this. Will be the amount that you can learn and layers that you can learn is always infinite, right? There's always the difference between I need to exercise and I need to exercise. Like if you ask the person that has just started getting into running or weight training or walking and started moving, then they've got that sort of first layer or understanding of when I move, I feel better, or when I move, I can burn calories. But if you're someone who's 20 years into weight training or 20 years into running or whatever sport that you like, you know that there are so many layers of understanding around just how you prepare, how you move, how you're breathing, your cadence, your tempo, all of these things that you start to refine and understand more about you. There's always going to be a lot more depth to that than what's seen from the surface. And to your point around doing workouts together, we have clients in that room that had been with us up to about 4 years. So there are many, many iterations that have already gone through, and it's not like they haven't been training for that time. They've been really building and progressing and shifting weight and really being happy with their progress. But being able to go through that sort of process of how are they breathing, and they're noticing that it's getting in the way of them being able to get into a squat properly, or are they holding that movement or just bouncing out? Like all of that stuff that you can apply to your next workout of what am I focusing on, or am I still just going through the motions waiting for the 9 o'clock to turn up and me having to go off to work, or whatever it might be.
Mhm.
So those sort of, where am I going with that? Those layers of and understanding texture, consideration for what you're going through, I think is really quite helpful. But then the second one is just an appreciation of how much progression people had gone through. So, for example, we had people that had been, say, 3 months into our program, and then we'd had
Mhm.
people, as I said, 3, 4 years. And you could tell within like an hour of talking to them, or even 10 minutes of talking to them, where they were in the program because of how they talked about their relationship with their body, their relationship with food, with the strength training. And just knowing that alone, it's quite exciting to, uh, if you're listening, and whether you're training regularly or not right now, the ability to give yourself permission to get rid of the judgment of how much further along you could be and think about like what's that next block that's getting in the way of you just getting a little bit better, right? So if you're training regularly, your block is going to be different than you not having the time to find the workout, right? So your block with the not time is like, well, I'm not going to give you more than 24 hours. So you've got to build the skill of allocation or communication to get something else out of the way, or saying no, right? Like that's the skill that needs to be built. Whereas if you're deep into the program and you're training 3, 4 days a week, but you're listening to podcasts, or you're trying to scroll on Facebook between episodes, that's going to be very different to you being able to count the rep, keep your breathing in place, and to really feel the muscle you're actually contracting. Both of them are putting effort in, but it's more a case of identifying your bottleneck and kind of building through a bit more. So yeah, that sort of, as you just to kind of lean on your point a little bit, right? The depth of understanding and connection when you're in those environments, people are like, oh
Mm.
wow, like you spend a lot more time in the preparation here, or you spend a lot more time thinking about the muscle than I thought. I thought it was just the dumbbell. So in every area, that I think that's really helpful.
There's always a continual refinement. If you're curious and if you're interested and if you want to grow, there's always a continual refinement of skills that can happen. Like you
Yep.
never, I don't think in anything in life we reach a point where it's like, oh, cool, I know all of that now,
Yep.
and now I can just do it all by rote. There's always something that can be tweaked or improved, and I think um, slightly off tangent, but not. It's also like that difference between the people that are just starting out and the people that are further in. Some of that is the fact that those people that are further in have just taken the time and surrounded themselves for a longer time frame with that kind of growth mindset or whatever. And there was a line that someone said, and I'm trying to think who it was. It might have even been Mick on one of our trainings in the group, about wallpapering that inside of your mind with those positive things. Like, and if we actually allow ourselves the time to be in the space with people who are doing these sorts of things, who are wanting to grow, over time our own mindset shifts with it. And I think that was quite an interesting one too. It's like the people that have been in the space for quite a long time, you could see the way they analyzed things and the way that they talked about things, and that self-compassion, but also not letting themselves off the hook all the time, just really showed up.
Totally. And there was a bit, you've got high level executives, you've got farming managers, you've got property developers, you've got such a range of different professions and backgrounds.
Mm.
You've got a huge range of fitness levels, right? You've got people in the room that are running, adventure races. You've got some people that have never exercised their whole life, and this is the first time that they've stepped weight into a gym environment. But the thing that was so relevant and aligned among all of them is they had that growth value that kind of came through, right? And there was an ability to just, they know they could get better. And I think so many people, even potentially listening to this, that are so quick to exclude themselves. Well, this is for fit people, or this is for overweight people, or this is for whatever version that's not you. I'll find a way to exclude. And I think as long as you're listening to this, you're in a space that you like to develop your brain and body in some way. Therefore, you are aligned and you're on the same path. And I think, the cool part that we'll share in a couple different ways is how you can bring strangers into a room. You can bring in a very specific structure in order for them to actually become great friends and continue to message in the space of 4 days and continue to after the event, right? Where we've got 2 WhatsApp groups continuing to pop off, 2, 3 weeks later, because those connections were made and those values were aligned, that would otherwise seemingly be very different people from Perth and from Canberra and from Wellington and Invercargill, wherever it might have been, to kind of bring them all into one spot. So where was it going there? I guess one of the areas that ties into is this getting out of your bubble, right? And you mentioned that through the lens of this ability to know what's next. If you're in a spot where you're like, yeah, I kind of feel like I know everything. I've worked this all out. You're probably in your own bubble, and humans have a great way of just reinforcing shit they already know, right? They continue to go deeper down the rabbit hole of keto to find ways that is beneficial and healthy and the best possible plan. But if I was to give you the opposite of that, I could find equal amount of evidence to show you that wasn't an ideal path, right? And we do that in every single aspect. That could be CrossFit, that could be vegan, that could be carnivore, right? Interestingly, I talked to a bloke yesterday who'd gone from vegan to carnivore, which is way more common than you'd expect, but kind of one extreme to the other.
Quite the shift.
Yeah. Where was I going there? So being able to challenge beliefs, it doesn't sound exciting, but when you put yourself in an environment where you know everyone's on the same path of getting better, you start to just explore like, oh, interesting, I hadn't thought of it that way. So it doesn't feel confronting and challenging and just all about breaking everything down. It's more about just exposing your brain to things you weren't looking for, right? And I think that's what you're talking about with even the depth of exercise. But what are we talking about now? This is communication with close ones in your life. This is about the whole value alignment discussion and how that actually shows up, or how do you practice that on a regular basis, and to everything in between.
Yeah. This idea of getting out of your bubble in a way, it was first triggered for me with a discussion on a podcast once about how there's never been a single invention that's ever happened that has happened from a single person's brain that didn't build on the knowledge that already existed from someone else. So everything that we do, all the growth that we have, all the new learnings that we have, are springboarding off something that is already there. And if you keep yourself in a silo and you protect yourself from anything that makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, like I don't do I train by myself and I don't share what I'm kind of working on with anyone else because I don't ever want to be challenged, or I don't ever want anyone to one up me, or you never want your edges tested. You're basically limiting yourself and your growth opportunities because you're not being exposed to new ideas and new ways of doing things and new thought processes and whatnot. And I think was really cool about seeing, like you said, a super diverse group of people who could all come together at all different fitness levels, at all different kind of levels on so many areas, but come together and encourage each other forward. And I think the value in that is that you get these little ideas. You're like, oh, that person's doing it, so maybe so can I. And I didn't think I could before. It never even occurred to me that I could have tried that before, but maybe I can. And I think there's a value that maybe we forget is there, especially as adults when we're just busy doing our own thing, that sometimes we just need to surround ourselves with some other people who maybe challenge us, and that's actually okay as well. But also it might give us ideas of things that we never thought we were even capable of.
Yeah, and what comes through for me there is sort of the hope and confidence field, right? Like the realization in many ways, but the confidence and hope that you can actually do the thing. So, for example, there was a lady probably in her early 50s, and she's like, oh, no, I can't do a pull-up at my age. And then like, cool, well, there's a 59-year-old cranking out 3 reps, right? Like there's a reason to do it. And I think being able to, as you said, completely just break that worldview of like, if you want to, you can. I'm not forcing you to do it. But if you're saying you can't because you don't think it's possible, like we can definitely break that one down.
Yes.
So exercise we're going to use, I guess, for me, there was so much more to this retreat than exercise, but it's a nice kind of avenue of how a lot of these beliefs were broken down. How many different ways did we see that? Well, the first one was we did a benchmark day. And for our members, we find this a really helpful anchor to bring in at least quarterly, if not monthly, to tick the box of fitness, strength, endurance, and power so that we can keep you young, strong, and mobile for as long as possible. And we've got sort of 5 key metrics or tests or exercises that we do in order to test that threshold. And then we have a range of sort of rookie, club, and mastery that give you a benchmark and threshold of, are you on track? And it's super common that if you come from more of a strength background, you'll be strong but not fit. So it kind of gives you an idea of, rather than just reinforcing the area you're already good at, how can I get over to this other space? And if you're listening to this call and you're you're always a runner, so your fitness is good, but your strength is really weak, you know that to get a more well-rounded health space, certainly from an exercise lens, adding that power and strength and everything not only allows muscles and mobility and everything to be better, it'll also make your running better, has been super helpful. So what we did is, in many cases, we got them to put up their benchmarks, and then we literally just broke all of them. Like, nobody didn't hit their metric, and we were 3 days in at this point. It was not completely fresh. We were putting 20, 30 plus kilos on their deadlift safely and saying, like, you're moving great, go again. We were getting people starting with a 3 minute wall sit, going to a 5.5 minute wall sit, which is crazy. And just breaking down that belief and barrier that they'd put up for themselves. And again, I can use many, many examples of how we did this and how they tolerated certain things in their relationships, how they tolerated their overworked nature at work. There's so many areas that we actually approach the same concept with, but I'll keep it to exercise for now. And as you said, sort of breaking down that bubble, seeing someone next to you that you saw or perceived as less capable than you crank out more does just give you that hope and gap of like, I can improve, but in a supporting way that you're like, that feels energizing, not like intimidating. I hope. So yeah, the exercise piece, the confidence piece, the intensity aspect was really helpful in a way that everyone left there not saying, oh, damn, I'm going to have to work myself a lot harder. It was more of I'm excited because I can do way more than I thought. And I actually really enjoyed that afterwards. I didn't feel beat up and broken. I actually just felt strong. And I think that's, a relationship that we've said so much about exercise over time is if you're doing exercise to feel worn out and tired because it burnt calories, well, you're not going to do it particularly often. You're going to find ways to get out of it. But if exercise is something that you clear the head, you feel fresh, you feel strong, you feel confident, well, that's a pretty reinforcing habit that you'll keep in place.
Yeah, totally. I like that. I think it's a nice shift to actually, one, try to see how far the training that you've already done has taken you. A lot of people are like, they do the training mindlessly and then they like don't actually apply it to anything that they can do and feel how cool it is to be able to do something and actually to test a benchmark and realize that you've got another 2 minutes on your wall sit than you ever thought you had because you're so much stronger than you thought you were. And then how does that apply to the activities you do? Like, how does that change the mountain bike rides that you might or might not approach, or those actual day-to-day life things that you want to do for fun because you've got that strength and capacity there?
Yeah, one of the phrases you wrote down before we started was, if there's no reason to protect the habit, there's no meaning behind it. And that's exactly what you're saying, which is these benchmarks, these workouts, you don't have to be a professional athlete. And it's funny because I'm talking to, thousands of our listeners at the same time. We might have the endurance athlete like, yeah, that's what this is about. But there's also a lot of you that will be like, I want to still be independent at 80. I want to be there for my kids or my grandkids to really still be mobile and strong and all those things, right? So you can choose the timeline and the activity slash reason that is valuable to you. But I think being able to tie it more closely, because exercise is not just an activity to shrink the waist or burn calories. It could be that, and it's still a very effective way of doing that. But tying it to this bigger meaning and overall things that you want to get out of your body and life, I think that's a cooler way, and certainly a much more reinforcing and a positive way that you'll be able to do it. So there's a lot there. I think the getting out of your bubble, bringing this awareness to intensity in a way that's actually rewarding, and building a stronger reason between the activities you do on a day-to-day basis for you, and then how that allows you to show up as a more valuable, meaningful role model for the people that you care about. Like, all of that's pretty powerful stuff. The only way that you can do that in many ways is that removing of noise. Now, am I saying that you need to take yourself to Bali in order to improve yourself? Not even slightly. I've actually got a big issue with people going to retreats to fix their health and then going back home and doing the exact same thing. So there's a huge focus on how do we create these sort of micro holidays throughout your week, those pauses, those ability to go for a walk when you said you were busy. They're just breaking up the day so you're not wearing yourself out to the weekend or wearing yourself out to the holiday to actually catch up and live life. I'm very much against that. But what we're sort of more talking about is this yin versus yang, right? If you're training hard throughout the week, you should be focusing just as hard on recovery. And the older we get, the more relevant that becomes. We're not made of rubber and magic anymore, so there's a little bit more recovery capacity required. And I think, as you said, coming back like full circle to where we started, of having those meals together, you're doing the yoga together, focusing on those general routines that kept us together. Like, 5, 6, 7 days together, you've got a pretty good idea of how people conduct their day and what sort of attitude they have towards how they fuel themselves and eat, etc. Because this isn't just, oh, my coach is watching, I'll have a healthy salad now. This is I'm 4 days in, I'm really tired, and there's all sorts of crap on the menu and things that I want from a craving standpoint that won't fuel my body. So we start to really uncover quite a lot of stuff there. And I think just being able to have this nurturing discussion of yin and yang. I pushed myself, so I'm going to fuel myself. I rested today, and now my body feels better. That whole just like really feeling more in tune with your body. Being able to do that, I guess, the day-to-day stuff for us is kind of like the podcast. You listen to the podcast and then you pause the thing and you listen and you breathe and you walk.
Yeah.
It's the ability to just have that consolidation of the yin, the yang.
Yeah, I've actually had that feedback from a few people that are like, I do what you said, I turn it off, and I just finish my walk with silence after.
Yep.
Like, yes, the message.
It wasn't the intended movement, but I kind of like it.
It's our thing now. You listen
Yep.
to our short, digestible podcast, and then just have a think about it. And to your point of removing the noise, I think I really agree with you. I don't like the idea of the only time you ever think about your life is when you go away on holiday and then you come back and just carry on doing the things you did anyway.
Yep.
There's no points to that. It doesn't actually fundamentally change anything, but actually inserting those same intentional moments throughout your day-to-day life. And it does have to be a little bit intentional, right? Of actually, whether it is, you block in some yoga or some meditation or a walk or whatever, or actually some time to sit down and think, because there is a freshness of perspective that comes from kind of removing yourself from your normal situation. But you can do that at home as well if you actually block it in and be intentional about it. And we did this the other night, me and my husband, but actually just being like, right, this is what we're kind of focused on talking about tonight. And just thinking through something, and the conversation doesn't always start straight away. It takes a while for your brain to get into that space, and then you start having these deeper thoughts about things, and you consolidate things, and you get so much more directional clarity about what's actually important and what you're protecting if you give that time to actually find out what it is you're focused on. Because otherwise you're just running fast, but who knows if you're actually going where you want to be going at all.
Totally. And that's a big phrase of ours, right? Everyone's working really hard, but they're running the wrong way.
Yeah.
So being able to give that space, huge fan. And without prompt, I think the silent walks, the journaling, that sort of stuff came up a lot as areas, or the yoga that people wanted to continue doing back home, because it is that yin versus yang that gets out of balance. And I think everyone's doing the hard stuff in regards to physically hard, but they're not doing the hard stuff, which is the white space to think, to slow down, to communicate, etc. Like the things that are just expected to be understood by others, but not actually communicated, right? That's the things that we all avoid. And I think being able to just kind of get that slightly more in balance, as you said, is super helpful. So even that unapologetic nature of being able to get your workout in, go for the walk, and your kids be at home, or obviously if they're with someone else or of the age that
You
they
just
can be
leave
at
them
home,
4 years
just
old, they'll
leave
be
them.
fine.
Yeah, exactly. Keep them in the cot, off you go. But the ability to be okay with that space to do those things for you, because those people in your life that you care about don't care so much about the total quantity of time if the quality is missing, right? Like if you're a stronger, healthier, happier, more present version of you for 4 hours a day or 2 hours a day, that's going to be way better than you being there all 12 hours but sitting on the couch grumpy, tired, and scrolling, right? So I think just the intentionality of that, and the giving yourself permission to really recharge the battery. Like you are human, and as much as you think you're bulletproof and you can just keep running on empty all day long, that little recharge, and in most cases the active recharge of moving and breathing and consolidating the brain away from the noise, the distraction, the requests, is the best way for you to be super happy with the man or woman in the mirror, because you were so much more intentional when you spent time with those people. And I think that really shone through in these people jumping on a plane, flying 9, 10 or 2 hours depending on where they were to Bali, and being able to share that time with us, because they knew they were getting better when they went back home, and there was zero guilt around that. And I really like to see that play through as well.
Yeah, it's good. It was funny how I do think that was a bit of a theme, right? Is a lot of the people that we work with are, those A-type personalities or whatever, that they lean easily into doing that hard physical thing, but to do the slowing down, the being intentional, that's the bit where often we're like, that's the bit that I'm letting myself off the hook and not doing that.
100%. Yep. Well, hopefully the main thing that you've taken away from this podcast is, golly, Mandy's audio quality is really good. She made a difference to her background. She already had a good mic, but as some of you have let me know over the last month, thank you very much. It was my problem, and I needed to fix Mandy's audio. But she got the hint, and she changed it anyway. So we've both changed our backgrounds. But the most important part is for you guys, the audio, acoustics, all of that fancy stuff in the background should be better for you too. So
I'm not podcasting from the bathroom anymore.
yeah, exactly. That's the one. So that's our Bali recap. We'll be back in with a bit more of focus on some of these key topics. We've got some good ones coming your way, but the retreat in many ways reinforced many of the topics we've talked about over the last 6 months of just how do we do that in the real world at a whole nother level of connection and anchors, but also in a lot of ways comforting to see how far and how much people had progressed, because what we didn't mention is one of our groups had been with us last year. So they'd come back. They loved it so much they had to come back again. And I was able to just dive straight into 2.0 level stuff because nearly everything from 100 level stuff had really stuck. And they looked fantastic. They were in a great spot. Many people had really changed their lives quite drastically in a way that they were in a much better spot for them. So that was super rewarding with week 2 as well, just seeing how much people can truly grow from a really impactful event like that, really lock in a plan so they do it back home and then come back again. So that was kind of cool. But hopefully for you guys listening to this, that sort of almost childlike nature to get curious and allow yourself the ability to lean into those extra layers of where you're getting a little bit complacent, whether it's just purely an intensity thing or asking those hard questions or really deciphering physically or mentally which is the area we're avoiding more. Where's the hard work? In a lot of cases might be doing less. Doing better, doing less. That's a pretty good phrase. So we'll leave it there. Hope you have a good rest of your week, team, and we'll talk again soon.